And all of a sudden, it was all about resource industries. And I remember it's like, what do I do with this? And I remember saying to my students, hey, kids, I'm not saying that, every tree has to be saved. But what I am saying is that not every tree needs to be cut down. And somewhere in there, there's room for finding out, learning about ecology, learning what's best, learning what's harmful, the whole fossil fuel thing. The sad part, of course, is that it's been decades now that they've known, right? The fossil fuel industries have known since the 50s that they were heading down the wrong path because their scientists told them that. When you're talking to young people and their parents are working in the industry. So that's kind of when parents will say, you're teaching a controversial issue. Not controversial at all. The science is clear, right? Burning fossil fuels, cutting down forests, emits carbon or does not store carbon. So we do have to find ways to reassure kids and in a sense to reassure parents. Yeah, that we're not saying what they're doing is bad. We're saying it's something that has to change, and grow. I'm not going to say that to kids who are younger than 12 years old and maybe even older.
If you were to look at consumption and population, it's the most populous country in the world in terms of ecological overshoot. Disproportionate distribution of wealth and resource use and consumption. So there's, a lot of degrowthers. We do align with a lot of degrowth literature we see ourselves as advocating for a future that's moving toward degrowth, is just not holding up growth as a necessity for prosperity or well-being. And we've interviewed a lot of ecological economists on that. But you'll see that even, a lot of degrowthers will say that a certain degree of growth is necessary for, countries that really have very poor standards of living. So maybe in that case, the growth needs to be super controlled, because at this rate, most countries are aspiring toward a North American standard of living, because that has become the idealized, notion of well-being. And we know that this is a gross level of consumption that we're engaging in just by virtue of being in a high energy country. Having social relations, bring those back, and whatever growth is necessary, and I'm not an expert in that area, but to have a very controlled level of growth and have significant reduction in production and consumption in the wealthy countries. But I'm not sure if that is going to happen at the rate at which we're going. So I think your question and probably the answer of, with those countries, can we allow, obviously, local initiatives and traditional initiatives that have worked so well before the growth economy kind of took over and capitulated a lot of traditional ways of.
In other words, my own evolution and the evolution of all kinds of other people is evidence that complexity theory, as it talks about emergence of something new happening, is in fact important. Now that concept takes you beyond modernity. So what I would have to rethink, because the challenge you're asking me is, what evidence would I need to think that modernity could actually be adequate? I'm sorry, there's too much evidence that it isn't adequate. You cannot deal with emergence within classic, modern, techno-industrial. We're already in the process of outgrowing it. Biologists, for example, who when I was at university talked about master genes and had a mechanical model of the expression from a gene to a protein. One gene, one protein with master genes. nice mechanical model. Nobody doing genetics today does that. They use living complex systems, and living complex systems cannot be stuffed into modern mechanical models. So we're already breaking out of it. Yes, I would want to gather the kinds of people, but I don't want to do it in defense of maybe we can keep modernity going. I want to do it in defense of let's pile up the data and make it easier to see that we're already leaking our way out of modernity. We, men, women, children, people at different ages, in a host of different ways, we're moving from piecemeal to relational understandings of reality, and from static to dynamic understandings. And our indigenous cousins are saying, it took you long enough, white man. Welcome to where you should be. Let's identify all the people in all the different fields, from education to theology to physics to complexity theory to raising children, because they're all there. The thing they agree on is that a better version of modernity won't do.